Everyone. In our previous class, we have discussed a lot about forces. A force is a push or pull. We have also seen the uses of force in our everyday actions like pushing, pulling, lifting, stretching, twisting, and pressing. We have also discussed that force is always due to an interaction. If there will be interaction between the two objects, then only it will result into a force between the two objects. In other words, we can also say that a force arises due to the interaction between the two objects. That means at least two objects must interact with each other to force in order to force to come into play, or in order to force to show its effect. If there will be no interaction, no force can show its effect. We have also discussed that the force is having magnitude as well as direction. The SI unit of force is Newton. And we have also discussed in details about the effects of force. What effects a force can produce, that we have already discussed in our previous classes. Now today we are going to start with types of forces. Now let us start. The force can be broadly categorized into two parts. First is contact force and the other one is non-contact forces. Contact force, which can be applied only when it is in contact with object. Whereas the non-contact force is the force which can be applied without contact with the object. The examples of contact forces are muscular force and frictional force. Whereas the example of non-contact forces are magnetic force, electrostatic force and gravity. Let us understand these forces in details now. These are some of the examples of contact forces: interaction between the object that touch, and the non-contact forces, that is the attract or repel even from a distance. You can see the examples of contact forces are applied force, spring force, drag force, frictional force and normal force. Whereas the example of non-contact forces are magnetic force, electric force and gravitational force. One by one we will deal with all of these. Here you can see that the contact forces are the force experienced by bodies when they are in physical contact with each other. It can be divided into two parts. First is muscular and the second is frictional. The muscular force is due to the action of our muscles, whereas the frictional force is the force acting opposite to the direction of motion. In the case of non-contact forces, the force experienced by the bodies even if they are not in physical contact with each other. The examples are magnetic, electrostatic and gravitational. The magnetic force is the force exerted by a magnet. The electrostatic force is the force exerted by a charged body on another charged body. Whereas the gravitational force is the attractive force exerting between the two objects which is having mass. So let us start with contact force. A contact force which can be exerted by an object on another object only through physical touching. That means physical touching, contact is very much required in the case of contact forces. The examples of contact forces are muscular force and frictional force. So let us now discuss muscular force in detail. These are some of the examples of muscular force: carrying books, walking and lifting weight. Let us understand with the help of one example. Suppose a book is lying on a table, and to lift this book from the table, some force is required. When we lift this book from the table by hand, the force is exerted by the muscle of our arm. Similarly, when we kick a football, what happens? The force is exerted by the muscle of our leg. So the force exerted by the muscles of the body is called muscular force. Both the human beings and animals can exert muscular force to do work. The human being exerts muscular force for performing the various day-to-day activities like kicking, like walking, running, jumping, climbing, squeezing, twisting, pushing, lifting, etc. etc. When a boy is pushing a box, when a child is riding a bicycle, when a person is drawing water from a well, all these are the example of use of muscular force. And it is the muscular force only which enables us to perform all the activities involving the movement or bending of our body parts. The muscular force also acts inside our body to perform various functions required for our survival. For example, in the process of digestion, it is the muscular force which pushes the food through the alimentary canal. The expansion and contraction of lungs when we inhale and when we exhale air during the breathing, this also involves the muscular force. And the beating of our heart also takes place by the muscular force produced by cardiac muscles. In animals like an ox or a camel or horse, provide the force of their muscle and help the man in doing the harder jobs. For example, ox pulls the plow by using its muscular force. Similarly, when a horse and a camel exert woods by their muscular force in pulling the cart, an elephant pulls heavy logs of wood by using the muscular force, and in Arctic region you must have seen the reindeer pulls the sledges by they also use their muscular force. Since the muscular force can be applied to an object only when our body or the body of an animal is in contact with the object. Therefore, muscular force is a contact force. Are there any other contact forces other than muscular force? Yes, there are, and we will see them in our next video. Thank you.